So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Josh Hirsch, Senior Strategist with Sukup Strategic Solutions, and I'm joined by
Angela Keys, and I am a senior consultant with Sukup Strategic Solutions.
And if you are here for intelligent connections, transforming stewardship with AI, you're in the right place. Let's get our slide deck going here as we do some major multitasking. Right, let's go to slideshow. Perfect. All right. And now I can make sure we're sharing the right thing with you. Go. Awesome. All right. We are set. If you can see that, if you want to let us know in Q&A, we'll be good to go. All right. Let's get started. So a little bit about us. Angelique is our senior consultant, and I'm senior strategist. Fun factoid about you, Angelique, that you want to share?
I am a metrics enthusiast. If you give me a spreadsheet and a bunch of data and some reports out of one of our CRMs, I am in my happy place. I'm also in California, so I know when you set the time, it's 11 a.m. here. It's so bright and early, but we are at the farm to fork capital here in Sacramento. And so anywhere I can go and eat where it's farm to table, I am happy.
I like it. And you know, being a data nerd myself, seeing you're a metrics enthusiast, that's important. Because at the core of everything, like we can have the best strategies, we can have all the best plans we want, but if we're not using the data at our core to drive our content strategy, our fund development strategy, our communication strategy, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Because it's that the analytics that are really what's proving what works. So that's for another time. A little bit about me. I consider myself to be an AI generative artist. I don't like the word artist so much because I look at artists who are, spent years of training and talent to hone their skills. I'm more of a prompt poet. I'm more of a creator. If you're so interested, you can check out some of my art on Instagram at The Dude Creates. It's a little passion project mine. And then wanted to share that The Princess Bride is definitely in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It's a love story, it's action, it's mystery, and like you've got Andre the Giant, and you've got so many great things in that movie. I love watching that at least once a year. What else would be in your top 5 movies there, Angelique? What's a top 5 favorite?
Completely transformed because I have most of our clients who are on know I have a 1.5-year-old, and so we watch Disney's Encanto at least 25 times a week,
Okay.
and so much so that I was Mirabelle for Halloween.
Love
So
it.
that's top 5 favorite movie of all time. I would say is My Best Friend's Wedding. I don't know why, I've loved it since I was a little girl, so that's up there.
For me, Goodfellas and Shawshank, no matter what time of day, what point of the movie it is, if it's on TV, I got to stop what I'm doing and watching it. Those are by far up there in the top 5 as well. And strangely
Definitely.
enough, I'd say Goonies is up there in my top 5 favorite movie as well.
And then you
Um,
watch it like you've never seen it before, like can't even blink.
it's the best, absolutely the best. But let's get into the real reason why you're here today, and that's learning about the amazingness that is AI. So we got 4 learning objectives for you today. So the first is really to understand the role of AI in modern donor stewardship. So we're going to be doing a brief overview of stewardship in general, why it's important, why I really think it's the secret sauce of fundraising. Because as we all know, it's much harder to acquire a new donor than it is to retain our donor. So being able to create those personalized experiences for those donors through communications, through various touches, how we can do that utilizing AI, it's pretty incredible. And then we're also going to be looking at some practical tools and strategies to use AI. While we're talking about the concepts, we're going to be looking at ChatGPT. There's tons of different GPTs out there, or the physical tool that you can use through that prompt engineering. But for my purpose, we're going to be using ChatGPT. ChatGPT does have a subscription model, but all the content we will be creating and working on itself is in the 3.5 model. The reason I do that is I want to make sure that everyone, no matter the access that they have, it's equitable to everyone. So we'll be focusing on that. We'll be touching a little bit on the ethical implications of AI. We have others webinars where we'll be focusing much more so on that. But I think it's always important to talk about the ethics, especially related around AI, because it's new. It's that topic that it's going to start to gain even more and more momentum as we go along. And then the final thing is, like, I want you to walk away with the initial thought of how you can use these tools to develop an enhanced stewardship plan. How you can use data, because as we said, and we learned that Angelique is that data nerd like me and using those metrics, but really looking at donor data itself. And what I'm really excited, because once again, I'll let my nerd flag fly. We're going to do some live demo and show you how sample donor data for a fictitious nonprofit I made up, how you can use that donor data to create personalized communications touches at scale. Because whether you have 10 donors, 100 donors, 100,000 donors, all these concepts are applicable to everyone, but it's the way that you can make sure you're still creating those experiences at that level. And that's what's really key. We want people, no matter if they're giving the $10 or they're giving $10,000, to have a personalized feel and touch. And that's where AI really comes in. But we're not going to have a little interactive portion of the show. So if you can go on your phones, you can scan that QR code, or you can go on your computer to slido.com. And what we're going to do is create a word cloud.
Josh, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly. We're getting a glitchy load on the slides.
Okay.
So we have a PDF version or something where we can share, because it looks like the transitions are giving us a little trouble today.
All right. I can try sharing another screen and see. We'll stop that share, and maybe we can get a little bit better. But thanks for letting us know, friends. Let's just jump over here now to where we're going to be. All right. Multitasking here with the best of them. So here we go. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen. And what we're doing is going to answer this question. When you think of artificial intelligence, and if you were with us on our first webinar last month, you may have remembered this exercise. I want you to answer the question, when you think of artificial intelligence, what words come to mind? And you can do that on your phone by scanning this QR code, or you can be going directly to slido.com. So I'm going to play along as well. Terminator, that's great. I love it. And feel free to answer multiple times. What you'll notice is as people have similar answers, those words start to become more prominent. So far we have creative, Terminator, robot, helpful, and I know we got some more than 3 people on this call today. So let's keep participating. I'll play along and answer some words as well. All right, let's see what we got so far. Overwhelming, scary. So often I hear that people say that it can be scary, and that's what I really want to try to dispel. I understand how it can be thought that way because it is a very powerful tool, and that's my response that I'm answering right now is powerful. I say powerful because it really unlocks anything. And I like someone put depersonalize. We're going to talk about that some more. It's scary in the sense that it's new, that it can be overwhelming. I see someone answer that, but it's a tool. It's a tool like any other. Think about Excel and the ability to sit there and analyze data and run formulas to make your life much easier. It is transformational. But to get to the person who answered depersonalize, and thank you for saying that. I understand why you would want to go in that direction. However, with clear prompt engineering, by building under what's called like the create formula or the persona generation formula, so basically creating who the lens of that you're talking through as you're doing the prompt engineering itself, it will make it feel less depersonalized and more specific to the individual, specific to your organization, identifying what your organization's tone and brand voice are really important. So you want to be teaching the GPT. You want to be teaching ChatGPT itself based upon your previous content. So think about the last 5 years of appeals you've done. And you've segmented them out and you've got different success rates. So what you could do is take that content, take all those segmented letters just for your major donors, feed that into ChatGPT and say, listen, here's the past 5 years of content that we've produced. And here are the results. So you're not only teaching it what your voice is and brand based upon the content, but also how those perform. So it's learning from you and able to then once again create, going away from that depersonalized aspect, creating that it's much more directed towards you. So I love that we see transformational. There's so much potential, and it's progressive, it's creative. This is really, really good. Thank you so much. We're going to share this out afterwards. But I always like to start any presentation, whether it's a webinar or something in person, if you have a chance to see me out there or one of our other wonderful staff and consultants out presenting. It's a great way to start off because it kind of level sets the playing field. It gives myself and Angelique an idea of where the mindset of everyone in the room is, and then at the same time to be able to call back to various items and things talked about here. So I think the most important thing is to look at this. It is the future, 100%. It is something that's going to allow you to be much more powerful and really most important, efficiency. How you can scale that personalization, getting away from depersonalized, but using your data, using those metrics to really create that personalized experience. So thanks everyone for playing along. We're now going to jump back over to our slide deck. And here we go. Hopefully everyone can see that, no problem.
We're good so far.
Awesome, so far. All right, so we're going to start off at the base, the evolving landscape of donor stewardship. And Angelique, if you want to take this slide.
Yeah, we're glitching again. So while we work on that, I'll go ahead and talk. So for many of us who have been in fundraising or in stewardship or in the nonprofit world for a very long time, we know how important stewardship is to the work we do to increasing not only our relationships with donors and deepening their relationships with our organization, but how important it is to, I always give the example of making a gift, that donor that gives $100 a month forever and always gets it, but then that could have been a donor that left a transformational 7-figure estate gift, but no one ever called them because their gifts were only $100, but you realize too late that they gave $100 almost 2,000 times, and that was somehow missed. And so I think that all of us on this call know how critical donor stewardship is when it comes to not only relationship building, but keeping our donors, obviously enhancing the donor lifetime value, but really feeding into what we do. We want to do what works well for our constituents, for our donors, for our volunteers. And that's where I think we talk about not only the strategy behind what we do, but how AI can assist that and how it builds our efficiency, but also gives us the opportunity to learn more about our donors. That donor that never, responds or comes to a gala, but they open all of our newsletters and read them, or they spend this much time on this article versus that article. And it helps us get insight into things that we may not normally pick up, or we don't have the bandwidth. I know most nonprofits do not have a full development workshop. We would all love as many as we can get, but the reality is we have a lot of one-man shows where you have one person doing everything, and there's never enough resources to meet the needs. So donor stewardship is really key, the key like foundation, even more so than our appeal, and even sometimes more so than our marketing, to the success of our fundraising efforts and essentially to our organizations as a whole.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. To me, getting them to make that gift is great, but keeping them around year after year to make that $10 gift or make that $1,000 gift or that $100,000 gift each year, that's where you've won them over. And in some respect, it's a science. It's that secret sauce recipe, because not each donor is the same. Every donor has their different reasons why they're investing in your organization. And I'll say that, a donation, they're giving from the heart, but they're giving because they believe in you, they believe in your organization and what's possible through the amplitude, the amplification and how they can amplify the bigger picture of just their gift being mixed together with others to make a greater impact. And knowing what makes one donor tick is going to be completely different from another. And the way that we communicate, we can't take a shotgun approach. You really need to focus on segmented communications. But how can you do that using AI? So that's really going to be the focus of what we're going to be spending a majority of our time here today, is what is that role of AI in modern donor stewardship. And I see it being in three specific verticals. You have personalization at scale, you have predictive insights, and enhanced donor understanding. So from our personalization at scale perspective, it's about focusing on the interest, the donation history, enabling tailored messaging and appeals specifically for that donor. And as we all know, clean data is king. So having a great CRM, whether you're using an Excel spreadsheet, which here's my plea to you. Invest a few dollars in the CRM. Excel is a great start, but it's not going to get you to where you be and need to be. And having clean data is going to allow you to do that personalization. At the same time, so the predictive insights, it's looking at past behavior, past donor preferences, which is going to lead to more timely and effective engagement strategies. So if you know that you have specific giving history that you can play off of and go from there, it's going to allow you to identify and get a better understanding of that donor. So it's looking at their social media interactions. It's looking at your engagement and past campaigns to really understand their interest. And once again, surveying your donors, surveying your constituents. I highly recommend you do that on an annual basis. Why? It's giving you a better picture and understanding of how they're connected to you. And then once you have this data, then you can run cool things like sentiment analysis, which come back in January, like that little tease, come back in January for our webinar, where we'll be focusing on AI in sentiment analysis. I really think that's like hugely powerful. So every time we're just going to dig a little deeper, and sentiment analysis is to me a huge, powerful part of donor stewardship. And I look forward to talking about that next month.
So Josh, I'll share with you a little secret. I, like most people, was a little scared of the whole AI thing. I know you started talking about it within the company, and I was just like, oh my God, I have my ways of getting into my system and synthesizing my information. And I was reading through an article, and it was talking about how we don't even realize how AI is being used. And it was talking about how when we're scrolling on social media, or if you're on your Amazon, and how sometimes you've heard people say, did you say that? Or I was just thinking that, and then an ad popped up. And the more I thought about it, I really was like, my Facebook knows me so well that I literally think it scans my brain while I'm sleeping, so that it can show me everything I thought I wanted to buy already. And it'll be there tomorrow, and now I'm putting it in my cart. But as a fundraising professional, as someone who was in donor stewardship for a very long time, I used to pride myself on being like a little private investigator ninja. I would almost have to contain how much I knew about my donors, because I had been on their Facebook, their LinkedIn. I've looked at all their pictures in the Rotary Club, because I want to know about them and know what makes them tick. And when I connected the two, I really started to see how AI was almost like the tool I never knew I needed into having insight about my donors and what really makes them tick and what's really going to draw them in closer. Little scary that AI is being used on me as I'm on Amazon and Facebook, but you can definitely see how that can then be transferred into the nonprofit world, into what we do in fundraising.
I think that's a great point, is that we think about AI being this new thing, being, oh, ChatGPT, it's unlocking all these new powerful ways to be more efficient. But it's really been around forever. Who remembers Clippy, our little Microsoft assistant, way back when? Clippy was AI before we really knew what AI was. It gave us a chance to be more efficient and have that virtual assistant. So fast forward to today, where we have like the power of the universe in our hand, using our phones to, using the ChatGPT app on my phone at anywhere at any time. I can be sitting there harnessing the power of AI for greater good. Really, really powerful stuff. Super excited to be sharing this with you today. So personalization at scale. So that's really what we want to talk about, is like, how can I take my 100 donors, and we'll just use that number for example. So those 100 donors have all different interests on why they're investing in my animal shelter. So I run an animal shelter in Houston, Texas. We provide a no-kill opportunity for those that want to make sure that their pets are, if they have to, quote unquote, abandon it or they want to adopt, we are that animal shelter for them. And that's the example that we're going to use. So these 100 donors, they all have different reasons that they're attached to our organization, the different reasons that they've invested. but using clean data, because that's where it all comes down back from, like I said before, their past donation history, their interactions, those interests, what's tied them to our organization. So having those fields in your CRM are really important, making sure that you have that updated so you can create these personalized individual experiences for them. Using the tools to segment our donors into those specific groups based on characteristics, whether it is zip code, giving history, giving level, or specifically those interests that they may have, then you're able to target the communication just for them and creating those customized donor communications opportunities. So what does that look like? That looks like specifically personalized messages in the form of direct mail or appeals, or when someone actually picks up the phone, because how often are we actually talking to our donors on the phone? And this is my challenge to everyone here. Separate from this, make it a goal of yourself to have a conversation with one donor a week. All right. So block off 15 minutes on a random Tuesday each week. So we're talking about 52 donors in your organization, right? So I want you to then take those conversations, and it's natural. You're not calling to ask for a donation. You're calling to hear from them, learn what motivates them. You're then going to capture that data and put it into your CRM and be transparent with them. Say, listen, and that's the other thing. Any data you're tracking in your CRM, you should feel comfortable enough to a donor say, hey, listen, this is our profile on you. This is what we know. So you're having that personalized connection. We're using stewardship, which is the core and key and magic of fundraising. We're going to then have a natural conversation to capture that data, to build their donor profile, and then come back and use AI to create those personalized communication experiences. So there's your homework. A year from now, you're going to have had 52 conversations with 52 different donors on a random Tuesday each week. So I'm going to check in on you because I know who's on this webinar today, and we're going to make sure that you're having those 52 conversations. But the last thing within personalization of scale is that scalability. It's how can we take that 52 conversations that we're having, tracking all that donor data, ensuring that we're having those individual personalized moments. That's the power of AI. That's really what we're trying to get to. And we're going to show you a little bit later how we can make that happen.
And then I do see someone has their hand raised. If you've raised your hand, feel free to drop your questions, and if you don't have your hands raised, but you have a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A and we'll be able to respond either live or directly to you.
Angelique, you want to take this next slide?
Yes, sorry, I got distracted. So yeah, when it comes to predictive insights, as it relates to AI and how we can utilize it for our stewardship, it really helps not only with the prediction of their behavior and what they respond to, what they open, what they don't, what makes them give, what they're spending a little more time on. It also, as most of us in the fundraising world know, the nonprofit sector and the especially fundraising has become extremely competitive. And so if you are on listservs like I am, I think on Giving Tuesday, I got at least 42 emails, some of them from nonprofits I don't even remember signing up for. And so when you think about, is everybody dropping their email at 7 a.m. or everybody sending out an end of year appeal right now? What is the best time to do that? What is the best day to do it? When are your donors most responsive? I used to work in a law school, and so we knew never to drop during the last 2 days of the month and the first 2 days of the month, because they're doing billable hours. They're not even reading, they don't even care what we're sending out, because they're either closing out clients or they're running invoices. So when you have that insight into when our communication should drop and how they should pace and what do our donors respond to, it really helps. You don't want a 4% open rate on what you send out if you send out an appeal, or if you send out a newsletter or your annual impact report. You spend all that time and hard work into it, and you want every single one of your donors, if possible, to open it, but as many as possible, because otherwise it just completely undoes our effort. Nobody if no one looks at it, then what was the point of all of the hours and all of the money spent producing it, has always been my philosophy. And then also life cycling. Understand when donors are coming in and when they're leveling up and how they're going from being your first time donor to your annual donor to kind of that leadership level to that major gift donor, and eventually that lifetime donor that's leaving their legacy through your organization, and really how they're pacing and how different groups within your organization are pacing. If certain donors to one program, they're the ones that tend to be more of your estate donors, or to this program tend to be more of your major gift donors. You want to know all of that, because that is really going to drive the strategy behind how you not only use stewardship, but how you go about cultivation and solicitation as well.
And the best part is that the AI can help get you there. Like most CRMs now, because once again, we've graduated from Excel and we're now using one of the countless CRMs out there. You know, you can run reports and have it identify those patterns of behavior that could help lead you to identify, all right, well, this person has given us $10 a month for the last 5 years. So that's 60 gifts at $10 a month. Has anyone thought about maybe looking at how we can, you know, not upsell, but have them increase their gift? Because clearly they're invested, they're a monthly donor, and monthly donors we know are like golden because we've got that donor retention at 100% basically, you know, month in, month out. So what is that targeted and personalized communication strategy and fund development strategy I'm going to put towards Angelique as a donor, because Angelique has donated for the last 60 months to my organization. And if I'm not using the tools available to me, if I'm not using the reports, or I'm not using AI to help run those reports, you don't need to have some crazy budget to be doing this. Literally, you could use ChatGPT, and if you want to go to the next level and subscribe at $20 a month and unlock even more data analysis features, you can do this all yourself. Like, it's amazing the power, because we saw how powerful it can be, really available to you now. So the last pillar we're going to talk about is that enhanced donor understanding. So from creating that comprehensive donor profile. So as we said, we're having 52 conversations over the next year with 52 donors or potential donors, someone that's in your CRM, because once again, you also want to be tracking in your CRM those who are connected to your organization. They may have attended a special event as a guest. They themselves haven't made a gift, but we're going to keep track of them. We see that they're opening up our emails because we're using great KPIs, key performance indicators, from our social media data, from our email marketing data that's being brought into our CRM. And then we're tracking it there. Say, okay, well, here's someone who hasn't made a gift, but they're really engaged with our content. You know, what other ways can we use those data points to help engage with them? What are those interaction patterns and their preferences to create more of a enhanced donor profile, which then drives to understanding their motivation? So the AI itself can help give us more reasoning behind that donor engagement. And this is really where like sentiment analysis comes into play. It's really great, not just for fundraising, but it's also great for like programmatic impact, and how are we doing from a service delivery perspective. We'll be talking about all this more at our January webinar, so make sure to stay tuned. We'll be having some information out that pretty soon. And then lastly, where I think like taking it to the next level. So we've had our 52 conversations. We've built this really great data in our donor profile, but now we know we can't take that shotgun approach. We want to take that personalized approach for our various segments. And like I said, you can really segment on anything. And what are those strategies behind it? So is it going to be on zip code? So are we using AI to identify pockets around the country where our donors are? So we know, all right, well, we've got 15 donors in West LA. So we're going to make sure we have a major gift officer that's going to spend some time in West LA for the next 4 or 5 days meeting with donors. Or we're going to do it based upon giving level. We start to see that there's this pocket of donors who are giving at $2,500 annually. Maybe we want to establish a giving society and bring these people together, and knowing that, all right, well, they're giving at a certain level. Do they have the capacity to give more? But that's not even like should be the main thought. It should be, all right, how can I create a homogenized segmented communication strategy for these $2,500 donors and still make it feel personal? That's where we are. That's the power of AI. And it's totally doable with some clear and simple prompt engineering. And what prompt engineering is really the science behind it all. So I have this chart, which is the prompt generation workflow. So it starts at the top with, all right, what is that problem I'm trying to achieve? Like, what is that solution? And the way I like to look at AI is really anything can be reverse engineered. If I want to sit there and I want to develop a 6-month fun development plan for my no-kill animal pet shelter in Houston, Texas, using clear prompt engineering, I can get there. It's important to think about AI is, and whatever GPT you're using, like I said, this example is ChatGPT. It's a really highly skilled intern. And that's, I think, a great description, because we never want to take like that first iteration. So you can see through this workflow, we're going to compose our message, we're going to send our message, we're receiving it. Are we satisfied? 99% of the time, that first generated output is not going to be what you want. It's going to be the need for something more refined, more specific. And I apologize that we're glitchy. I really don't know why the slides are coming through that way. We'll be sure that when you do get the recording, hopefully it's not as glitchy, but we'll make sure that you have the slides as well, and the recording will be sharing that as well. So we've sat there and we've got our first output. We know that we need to refine it some more. We're going to bring it back to the top, a little more tweaking, but the core of what it is how are we teaching the GPT itself what we're trying to achieve? So that's where the fun part of this show now begins. So let me jump right over.
While you jump over, Josh, I can share something. So everybody don't be shocked. I have a 1-year-old and I have a 21-year-old that's in college. My 21-year-old introduced me to ChatGPT, and I'm like, I've never heard of this. I don't know what you're doing. And she goes, hey, such and such, write me a letter of recommendation for such and such. It writes it. Hey, make it longer. It makes it longer. Remove the last paragraph. And she's literally talking it in. Don't say this, use this term for everything else. And by the time she gave it 4 commands, it had really written a letter of recommendation for her in like 2 minutes. It changed whatever words she said. Don't ever use this word, use this word. And it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it.
So it takes away that blank page syndrome. We all know how, so it's December 14th. My no-kill animal pet shelter in Houston, Texas has already sent out our end-of-year appeal, but we've got great clean donor data. So we've sent out segmented appeals based upon interest, based upon giving level, based upon where they are in the country, based upon how they got connected to our organization. And you're right, it is so amazing to be able to not start from the beginning. But it's not underscoring the fact that we need to teach it and know that the first time that we're putting our input, it's not going to be always that desired output. So whenever I start out with a prompt, and as you see here, if you've never seen ChatGPT before, this is the platform. This is the interface. Right here, I just have the sidebar closed. So we just have a full landscape. But this right here is all the various conversations that I've had with it over the past year or so of using ChatGPT. There's a ton, as you can see. But I use the word talking to it. And I think that's what's important, is that at its core, AI is a natural language processing tool. So it's picking up on the context of what you're talking to it about, what you're saying to it. Keep in mind, grammar, punctuation don't matter so much. So you might see me typing and I might not have all the proper capitalization or punctuation. It doesn't matter so much because it's picking up on that context. But whenever I start off, like I said, we want to teach it who it is. So for us, our purpose is we're going to act like. That's how I always start off the beginning of my prompts, is that I want that GPT to act like something with like blinders on. So we're going to say, act like the vice president of advancement for a no-kill animal pet shelter in Houston, Texas. Okay, so we've established the role, we've established what type of organization, and we've established location. Now we want to give some credibility to who we're working with. So you are a 30-year, or sorry, let's rephrase. You have worked in the nonprofit sector for the past 30 years, having raised millions of dollars for various types of organizations. You are a subject matter expert on all things related to fundraising strategies and communication strategies. So we got that unicorn. We got that nonprofit unicorn that we're working with here. You have presented at international conferences and are well respected by your peers in the sector. Okay, so by doing this, we now have that initial frame set, that those blinders, like I said, for which they're going to live in. Now, I'm going to hit enter, and I never know what's going to be output. Like that's the kind of like the exciting thing to me. It's like every time it's something new. And for whatever reason, and it's kind of annoying, but it's going to now generate a letter. It's like an introductory letter. That's just like what it does. I don't know why, but then we'll go from there. So I'm going to hit enter. And like I said, here it's now generating a letter. And I just ignore any of this because literally all this is doing is like in its own mind saying, okay, these are everything I know. Like it's saying I'm a subject matter expert in digital fundraising, DAFs, cryptocurrency, impact reports, peer-to-peer, yada, yada, yada. So we now have those blinders set and we're ready to move forward. So for the purpose of our exercise, what I want to do is draft our end of year appeal. Now, what I did was I created a sample data set. And this data set is one that I used ChatGPT actually to create for me, just for this purpose. Now, what you see here is important is there are no first and last names. So I highly recommend every organization that is going to use AI in some capacity has an AI usage policy for your organization. Why? Because it gives you those guardrails from which to operate and work within. You as an organization should have a donor gift acceptance policy. You should have a social media usage policy. You should have a finance policy. Now, with the advent of using AI in all aspects of nonprofit work, you really should have that AI usage policy so you're able to know which those guardrails are in. And we'll share that link. I have a great template. And actually, if you really wanted to, you could say, create an AI usage policy for my organization. And while I wouldn't rely upon just this specifically, it's now going to generate a framework from which I could work. There are some great templates out there, but as you see, this quickly, it now just generated a starting point. Because once again, we're never copy and pasting. We're never going to just rely upon what the intern's first output is. But it's important to have something like this to be starting from. So that way, when we have our donor data, we know that we've scrubbed out our first and last name. We know that we've scrubbed out addresses. We might just use zip codes. We might take out, age, whereas at the same time, you might want to have age or birth date in there so you can identify potential plan gifts or legacy giving from that perspective. For this purpose, though, like I said, I created 10 sample donors sets. So we're going to copy and paste these and have that ready. So what we're going to ask it to is it's November 1st, and we need to begin sending our end of year fundraising appeals. These appeals need to be segmented by various factors. The first factor I want to address are our major donors. We classify a major donor as anyone who gives $1,000 or more annually. Based on, okay, so that's the first start. In our letter, identify, all right, let me think about how I want to do it. So, and that's the other thing too. What I love about prompt engineering, I'm always like always thinking in my mind, what is it I'm specifically trying to ask it to do? And knowing that my first question to it, my first command isn't going to always be the right one. So in the letter, it should be personalized to each individual based on their interests and association to our organization. Based on the data below, and we'll drop our data in here. And as you see, it's basically just dropping as in a CSV format that is then separated out. So based on the data below, let me think here. Based on the data below, draft a letter for the first 3 donors. For those who are indicated as a major donor, have a specific letter that is segmented towards them. All right. Have no idea what kind of content we're about to get, but we have our commands. We kind of gave it that framework from which we're working. We're asking specifically for what we want in our output, and we have our data set. So let's hit enter and see what happens. All right, so I'm not loving this first output. So first off, the subject line personalized end of year fundraising appeal, that's horrible. That's not it at all. We would never start a letter off. I hope this letter finds you well. And I want to start by expressing my heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering support. That's just like icky. Like you can tell the data sets that it was taught upon is like, I don't like that at all. So and you want to be very clear when you're working with it. Like I praise it when it does something good, and I admonish it when it does something bad. So this is not what I'm looking for at all. We need to start over. Draft 3 separate letters, or sorry, draft 3 separate emails with 3 CTAs per email. The CTA should be to donate and support our end of year campaign. In each email, be sure to highlight and draw attention to their interests as associated. Whoop. That's didn't mean interests as associated with our organization. Let's see what happens.
I will say that even though it was bad, there were some parts in it that I like that I think you could still pull some of the language from.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So a lot of times what I'll do, and like while that generates, I'm gonna copy this into like Google Docs or Word or something and start building from there. Because like I know that there are some parts that probably could work, but I don't love it. So, first off, like the subject line is horrible. I'm not loving the structure with what I'm seeing here. It did follow my instruction by like having an email specifically for our major donors interested in a cat shelter. This has a lot of work. And that's the other thing is you're never going to get clean right out the bat. Like this needs a lot of refinement to really get where I'm trying to go.
I will say, Josh, though, if you've ever handed off anything to an intern, when you were giving instructions, that's almost how I've felt when I've had interns in their training. And this is usually kind of what you get back when you're teaching someone, how to write for your organization. If you've ever had a volunteer pen a letter for you or had someone kind of be the person to write, it takes a minute to get them into your voice, your tone, what you like, what you don't like. I do like that I could probably just sit here and play with this all day and say, okay, keep this paragraph, remove this paragraph. And then put some of my support staff onto something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what it does is it frees you up time, like you said, to have one of those 52 conversations that we're going to have over the next year with one of our constituents. But at the same time, it allows me to refine it even more so. If we had the past 5 years of our letters of appeal, we would have fed that in here, and it would have been much more so like in tune. So we're going to take a step back because I'm not loving our outputs and with what we're getting here. So this is not closer to what I'm looking for. Let's take a step back and start with the subject line. Okay. So create a table. And that's the other thing is being as clear about your desired output, the cleaner and more direct it'll be for what your intended goal is. So create a table with 5 subject lines and the reasoning for each one. So maybe starting with the subject line, we can get a little closer to what we're looking for. Double your impact this holiday season. That's just assuming that we had some sort of match going on.
Getting closer.
Your love for animals can change lives. Liking that one a little bit. Exclusive invitation, that makes it seem special. That might be something that you're targeting more towards a segmented group. Help us reach our year-end fundraising goal. So I personally hate this approach in fundraising because you know what? That's a goal that you put on yourself. That's a time-sensitive goal that you put on yourself. And really, donors don't care about your goal. What they care about is the impact that their $10 gift, their $10,000 gift, their $10 million gift will make on those animals at your pet shelter. So keep that in mind when you are writing and working. I like this one, last chance to make a difference in 2023. That has a sense of time, sensitive urgency. So I think, we're getting a little closer. So what I'm going to say is I like the subject lines for number 2 and number 5. Create a new subject line option that combines the premise behind each one. Let's see what we get.
I do appreciate that it put the reasoning why it gave that. Like for number 5, it says the urgency is emphasized. It's motivating them to, get in while you can. And I do like that it includes that behind it.
Which is, once again, going back to my clear instructions for output. I said, and the reasoning for each one. Had I said, just give me 5 subject lines, it would have just been 5 bullet points. And it wouldn't have allowed me to myself think further. Without me even reading that, I knew that it was touching on that urgency, but it's realizing it. So here we had your last chance to change lives in 2023. Join us now. Closer. So this is closer to what I'm hoping for, but I want there to be a focus on animals. Redraft a new version based on this. Last chance to change animal lives in 2023, act now. I don't love it, but for the purposes of our example, we're going to use it. So I don't love it, but we're going to go with it. All right, so we have our subject line that we're ready. So this subject line should be only used for those donors who are not considered major donors. Create a version for those who are a major donor. Because once again, we're creating that personalized opportunity, and it's an exclusive opportunity for our major donors to transform lives in 2023. I don't love that either. But I might take something like exclusive opportunity, which makes it seem like I'm more special because I'm at a different level. So I might say, exclusive opportunity, last chance to change animals' lives in 2023, act now. So I don't fully love this, but we'll use a portion of it. For those donors who are considered major donors, the subject line should be exclusive opportunity and last chance to change animal lives in 2023, act now. All right, so now we have our 2 subject lines for our general, and we have ones for that. So based on our previous donor data table, and that's the other thing, it's going to continue to learn when you're staying in one thread. So if I sat here and started a new chat or went to one of these other chats that I had worked on from months ago, it would have no idea whatsoever what I'm talking about in this one specific thread. So it's important that when you're working on a project, continue to stay in that one chat so it's continually building upon one another and learning as we go. So,
Josh,
it,
I have a question came in, and I wonder if you can tie it into this. As you're
sure.
using AI for this output, how do you gather and get your KPIs to connect with the chat GBT? So if you have what you have in your database, you know what you're trying to do and trying to accomplish, and now you have chat GBT, how do you create this flow into it?
Very simple. So just as we had this Excel spreadsheet here, you could have a new sheet. So I'm once again making this up as we go. So open rate, click through rate. We've got um, ROI, return on investment. You've got donations per email. We're making up KPIs here. So you would drop this data in here. We've got a 20%. Well, you got 20%. You've got 25%. You've got a 33%. You've got a 48%. Whoops, 48%. Donations per email, we got 10, we got 3. And we'll just delete this right here. So in theory, I could then grab, and then even more so. So like, let's say you have subject line, right? So it's then learning from previous data. So the subject line is "You're awesome. You can help," just making up subject lines here. So what I could do then is then literally copy and paste these data points, bring it into ChatGPT and say, based on the data set below and the subject lines, create a list of 5 subject lines that will perform well based on the KPIs shared. So I can then drop that here, hit enter. So it's now looking at my past key performance indicators on that data set and then saying, okay, well, this subject line did well and it got us, an open rate of this and the click-through rate and then 10 donations. But this one had a higher click-through rate but fewer donations. It's then going to sit here and create new subject lines that will then be based upon that data. So it really is as simple as just copy and paste, but it comes back to having clean data that you can base everything on. So from those 52 conversations that we're having this next year, we're tracking all that stuff in our CRM so you can then use that to help them drive the specific information that you see here. Make sense?
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so let's come back to this here. So let's just grab these 3 here because we only have a few minutes left. But I could do this all day. This is like the nerdy fun stuff that I love. Because we're really like it's a science and a magic. I have no idea as the chef what meal I'm creating. I know what ingredients I'm dropping in along the way. Is that souffle gonna rise or is it gonna like fall and puff down once it takes out of the oven? I have no idea. But I'm playing along as we go. I'm creating, I'm reiterating, I'm adding a little bit of spice, I'm adding a little bit of sugar. Make sure that those are all harmonious so that when we're using that data to really get to that subject line we want, that we know that it's going to be golden.
Josh, can you talk a little bit more about so that we get into like what we want and how to continue to teach it? What would be good prompt wording practices to kind of get you closer to where you want to be or help you continue to steer it into what you need?
So it's really learning as you go. So I know that I want to have a very clear output. I want to have, draft a 3-paragraph end of year email appeal that has 3 CTAs to donate. To donate. Include the donor's interests as a driving theme in the email. Below are the data points to base the email off of. Remember, if it's a major donor, they get a separate subject line and different personalized email. So then we'll drop this here. Let's see what happens. It's really trial and error to get to where we want to be. So I mean, I'm not loving this structure at all. I think this has a long way to go. Um, it's not really following my instructions. Like here, your dedication to donors' interest. I don't love that because right here, I have interest in organization. So I'm not gonna always get my desired output right the first time. And we saw that it wasn't. Like that's the thing, is that it's going to take time for you to really dial in what you want. However, it's going to make you more efficient. It's going to make it scale that personalization factor much greater than you could right now. Um,
I can tell you
Not
though,
everything is going to be right the first time, and that's what I like about it. Is that we are learning as we go. What'd you say, Angelique?
I was going to say, even though it didn't give us what we want, when I'm thinking about, I actually just wrote some end of year appeals for some of our clients. And there are times where I'm stuck on the closer or I'm stuck on the subject. Like I got some good stuff here and I just can't finish it. Like I'm trying to figure out how to close this out. And I could easily see myself typing in what I have, giving a little background and saying, give me some good, closing paragraphs or calls to actions or subjects. I could also see myself drafting an appeal or drafting a stewardship piece and a department gives me their KPIs or their outcomes. And now I have to figure out how I'm going to put their outcomes and what, the impact they've had into my letter and saying, here's this, end of year appeal, or here's this stewardship piece I'm putting out. Infuse these outcomes into it to demonstrate the impact we've had on shelter pets this year, and see it helping me kind of bring everything home and giving me other ideas while taking some of the legwork off of my plate.
I think that's a great point. So you could take a already drafted letter that you've been working on, bring it into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, here's how far I've gotten with this letter. I really need some help bringing together a closing paragraph." Or, taking a letter that you've done from the past 5 years, putting that into ChatGPT, like I said before, using the KPI, saying, "Okay, here's the subject lines, here's the body copy for those emails, here's the associated KPIs, the open rate, the click through rate, the ROI. What is that? The number of donations, how much is raised from each email. Based upon that, create subject lines that are tied to there, and then at the same time, how are we going to take it to the next level?" Maria, are you able to drop the survey link into chat? I want to make sure that our attendees have a chance to complete that survey. Just so you know, we're right up on our hour mark. Like I said, could be doing this for hours upon hours. I love this. This is like, to me, it's the nerd in me really coming out, but it's powerful because we can work with any type of organization, no matter what it is, no matter where you are in the sector, whether you're a small mom and pop operating out of your front bedroom, or if you're a higher education university, medical institution, what have you. These tools level the playing field. It's giving you a chance to have a director of development, director of marketing, chief financial officer, chief data scientist. When you're literally just like a staff of one, it's just me here working at home, running a multi-million-dollar nonprofit for animals based in Houston, Texas. But using these tools, I can be much more efficient. I can grow that scale. And to me, like it's a really powerful tool that, when used effectively, will be powerful. So I don't see Maria has dropped that into chat, but you will be getting an email following up today. It'll have a link to the recording. It's going to have some great more resources in there, as well as a survey. Really appreciate you all joining us today. Angelique, it's been a pleasure having you co-present with me today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Really exciting. I'm excited for what's on the horizon for everybody that's in the nonprofit sector, and having access to these tools that other sectors have had access to for so long.
Absolutely. And if you want to, find out some more, we have opportunities for a free 30-minute consultation to discuss how you and your nonprofit could use AI, or one of the many services that we offer here at Sukup Strategic Solutions. Thanks again for everyone joining us. Next month, January 16th, we'll be talking about AI and sentiment analysis. And oh, there we go. Thanks, Maria. You dropped that link there in chat. That's the Survey Monkey link if you want to go and give your evaluations and let us know what your thoughts are on this webinar. And we promise to be looking to Zoom to see why we're not able to get chat functions working. Not sure why that is, but wonderful. Thanks for joining us again today, and have a great time.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays. Have a wonderful end of year and successful end of year campaigns.
Bye.